Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Superintendent Barbara Nemko.
Good morning. As you just heard, I'm Barbara Nemko. I'm the Napa County Superintendent of Schools. This is Jeanette Luedders, and she is a preschool teacher for the Napa County Office of Education. And we are going to talk to you about what has become one of the hottest topics around, and that is early literacy. So how many of you have children? How many of you remember when you brought that baby home from the hospital? Do you remember talking to the baby? What did you say?
Songs we sang.
You sang songs. Wonderful. What did you say?
I love you so much.
What did you say? I babbled all day. I talked to that baby. I narrated the day. From the minute we walked into the house, it was, ooh, wait till you see your new room. Look at the mural on the wall. Do you see the giraffes? Aren't they big and tall? I just babbled all day long. And now we're going to get ready to go to bed, and we're going to put on your pajamas. And Grandma's coming tomorrow, and isn't that going to be exciting? And I just talked and talked. Any of you remember doing that? And so we kind of assume that everybody does that. And my daughter, who now is 43, I don't remember thinking about early literacy at that time. You know, it was just a natural part of what I did. But by the time my nephew was born, I had this aha moment. He's 26 now, but when he was 2, we were having a conversation at his house. And it involved something about what we were going to do for that day. And everybody was talking in paragraphs, you know, and yeah, I think we're going to take the bus and we're going to go to here, and then after that we're going to do this. He was 2 years old. And suddenly I went, oh my God, because by then I'd been teaching for a long time. How is a kid who comes from a family that doesn't speak English as their native language and who isn't talked to and who doesn't have books read, how are they going to do in the kindergarten class next to Max, who's been talked to and read to and has a vocabulary that, and I had that thought. It was a real aha moment. And then I had no idea what to do about it, so I forgot about it. It was just kind of an awareness. And suddenly fast forward 24 years, and you see that everybody is talking about this. And everybody is talking about the achievement gap. And as teachers, I take it very personally when I hear that schools somehow create an achievement gap. And I'm thinking, wait, I'm not so sure we do that. I think what we do is we narrow the achievement gap. I think that what happens is we get students who come to school with a huge achievement gap, and we are trying to fix that for the next 13 years. Well, suddenly, we're not the only ones, not just teachers saying that, other people are saying that. And so we have a little message from Hillary Clinton on that very topic.
Behind these doors, America's future is being shaped. Inside, you'll find some of the world's most important teachers. Libraries, where any book on the shelf is an instant classic. And the most eager students anywhere. These aren't Ivy League universities, they're homes. And new research shows that what happens here during the first 5 years of your child's life will make a difference for the rest of his or her life.
Inside the brain, amazing things are happening. The research is very powerful and the science is very compelling. Early experiences have a huge impact on the development of the brain. This is a time when the foundations of all the health and learning and behavior that are going to follow for a lifetime are being built, that literally affect the development of all those connections among brain cells, 700 connections per second in the early months and years of life, that ultimately form the circuits and the architecture of the brain.
It turns out that what we do every day as parents, talking with our kids, hugging them, singing a lullaby, or reading a bedtime story, has a lasting impact.
The science is clear. We know that positive experiences and interactions enhance brain development, while traumatic experiences and toxic stress literally stunt brain development. And a healthy start, like a mom taking the right amount of folic acid while she's pregnant, or a child receiving a healthy diet to prevent childhood obesity and diabetes, That is the recipe for long-term success.
Our country's future depends on healthy kids and loving families. They're the building blocks of a strong and prosperous society.
We've got big challenges. Our students are falling further and further behind in math and science, but we can fix it. The research shows that the early years really matter. Getting them excited, getting them wanting to learn about what's out there. If we get it right, they're hooked on either math or science. That's huge, not just for our kids, but for the future of our country.
Raising a family is hard work, and it's important to know that you are not alone. There are resources to help and simple steps that parents, preschools, businesses, and communities can take to help our kids succeed, because we're all in this together. And that's what the Too Small to Fail initiative is all about.
The most important place for children is the home, what their parents do. But we all have a role to play. Right now, parents and families, they're really struggling to meet their needs of their children and the demands of their employer. And what we know is that some employers are helping them. They're making modest adjustment to workplace policies, and what they're seeing is healthier families, happier employees, a more productive workforce. We want to see that trend continue, to work with the private sector in partnership to make that happen.
It's little things early on that can make a huge difference later on.
You know, right now our country's never been more connected, whether it's Google or Twitter or Facebook. There's this incredible connectivity and technology out there that can transform lives. But we have to marry those tools and that technology with the right kind of research so that parents and families and schools and businesses have the information they need to give kids the chance they deserve in life.
Every parent has looked into their newborn baby's eyes and seen unlimited potential. And now we know how to help them achieve that. Too Small to Fail is all about giving parents, families, businesses, and communities the tools we need to help all our children succeed. So please join us for the future of our kids and the future of our country.
So that would make it sound easy, because what she's describing is your family. And you've already done that. The issue is, so many of our kids come to school not from that family. And what I did not realize until recently is that in many cultures, it's considered stupid to talk to a baby. They don't understand, or the culture is such that talking to a baby would be like talking to a table. Why would you talk? Because they don't understand. And so there is not a lot of conversation. And one of the things that the Clinton Foundation is doing is something called Providence Talks and Oakland Talks, where they are wiring parents and babies to see how many words are spoken in the home. And what they discovered in too many homes is that the television goes on early in the morning and stays on all day. And so there is very little conversation, or if there is any conversation, it's not interactive. It's in the background of television, which, as we all know, is a passive medium, so that the children are not hearing and learning and interacting with all these words. And our population in Napa County currently is 53% Hispanic, but that's K-12. If you look at our youngest kids, it's more like 80%. And many of them are English learners when they come to school. So they are coming to school with every imaginable, I don't want to say deficit, that's perhaps not the right word, but all of the things that she mentioned. If there's a lot of stress, that's hard. It doesn't help a child learn. If parents are very busy and don't have time to talk, or they don't understand the importance of talk, all of those things happen. So we know right now, 50 years of research. We do research a lot. I wish we would implement as much as we research. But 50 years of research shows that children who come from lower income, less educated parents typically enter school with poorer language skills than their more advantaged counterparts. Now, okay, it's a little self-evident. I don't know how many millions of dollars we spent to come to that conclusion, but we now know that. And 46% of children enter school 2 years behind. There's your achievement gap before they get here. 2 years behind in language skills. 88% of the children who start out with poor literacy skills are less likely to graduate.
I'm wondering if it's going to be a bigger deal than just the low income, because you weren't spoken to in the car, you're watching a DVD in the car, you have constant multimedia stimulation.
That's a very interesting point. What we're going to show you today is how to harness the power of digital devices to enhance children's ability to learn vocabulary and to speak and to read. But you're absolutely right. The power of digital devices is enormous. And there are a lot of people who will say, well, we need to limit screen time because the research shows screen time is bad. Most of the screen time studies were done on television. Television, again, being that passive medium where the words just wash out into the universe and you don't interact with them. 18% of entering kindergarten children do not know that English print is read from left to right and from top to bottom. And 34% cannot identify letters of the alphabet by name. Now we know, again, that it isn't that if you know the alphabet you can learn to read because knowing the alphabet is the key feature that helps you learn to read. It's a correlate. If you know the alphabet, you have been talked to, read to, and you've had the advantage of all of this background. So it isn't just that, well, if we teach the alphabet the first week they come to school, then they're fine. No, but it is very important. So then they've actually quantified it, and they say by age 3, children from wealthy families have a working vocabulary of 1,116 words compared to 749 words for children in working class families and 525 words of those on welfare. That's by age 3. So they really just started to talk, and we have this gap. And when they enter kindergarten, they have heard 10,000 fewer words than the peers from middle class families would have heard. And we know in order to have children succeed academically, we've got to close that gap, because think about what happens when we teach reading. Reading is nothing other than conversation written down or stories written down. So we can teach a child to decode, but if they don't know what the words mean, it's like us decoding German. We might be able to pronounce some of the words, but if we don't speak German, it doesn't mean anything. So is that reading or is that word calling? It's word calling. So kids have got to have the vocabulary and the understanding and the experiences in order to be able to successfully learn to read. We know that the brain is most active from birth to kindergarten, those first 5 years. That's when all the dendrites and all the connections are made, and that comes from having a wide variety of experiences and conversation. And there are trillions of connections between the neurons, so you see connections and very few connections. And so what the Clinton Foundation, their motto is talk, read, sing to your baby. Talk, read, sing. All of those things which we all did, we're trying to tell all families that that's really important. So one of the things that I heard about 4 years ago was a digital early literacy program called Footsteps to Brilliance. And Footsteps to Brilliance was created exactly for this, to help close the gap by giving kids the opportunity to hear stories on a device where the stories read themselves to the child, but the child interacts with the stories. Now, this is important because, at least among the parents that we frequently see in Napa County, they would love to read to their children, but many of our families are not literate in Spanish. So they can't read English and they can't read Spanish. It isn't that they don't want to, but they can't. So what we are providing is the opportunity for them to put the child on their lap and read a story out loud, except the device is doing the actual reading. We started in 2011 with a very small pilot program. We took 16 students who had not been to preschool and were not from English-speaking households. And they were in a 4-week summer boot camp. And we introduced Footsteps to Brilliance. We had to import a teacher to teach the class. It was in Calistoga. And there was no one in Calistoga. 2011, remember that iPads were invented in 2010, which is hard to believe when we feel like how did we ever live without them, but that's when they came out. There was no teacher who knew how to use an iPad, so we brought one in from somewhere else. And the kindergarten teachers came in and they were angry on their own time, because they knew that this was the dumbest thing they ever heard of, because screen time is bad for kids, and what were we thinking, and these are preschool kids, and they should be out singing and playing, but they shouldn't be looking at a screen. And within 2 days of observing what was going on in that classroom, we gave them pom-poms, and they became our cheerleaders, because they were astounded, flabbergasted at the level of engagement that the students had with this program, the interaction that they had. And in that first little 4-week program, we got so excited that we invited the state superintendent, Tom Torlakson, to come down. We had people coming in every day, and here are these little kids, and their first time they've been in school at all. And we would have sometimes 16 kids and 20 adults standing around them. And when we adults got rude and were too noisy talking to each other, instead of getting distracted, these kids would say, "My headphones, please." And they'd put on their headphones to block out our noise so they could continue paying attention to what they were doing. And when the kids, at the end of that 4-week summer boot camp, we had all the kindergarten teachers and everybody who was involved in the program come and do a debrief on how we thought it worked. And our plan had been for the 16 kids to divide up into 4 kindergarten classes. So 4 in each class, taking the iPads with them, and we would have centers in each kindergarten class with 4 iPads. And the kindergarten teachers looked at us and said, "I'm sorry, every kid has to have an iPad. Every kid has to do this in kindergarten." The same people who 4 weeks before were standing like that demanded that they have that. And so we did do that, and we have been using this program in various ways around the county ever since. The program, which I'm going to let Jeanette describe and show you how it's used, has all of these components and keeps growing. The first is the ALPS program, which are a combination of fiction and nonfiction interactive books that read themselves in English or Spanish to the child by just touching English or Spanish. Then there is a new set of books that were developed for the STEM initiative, and they are alphabet books about animals, so they are all nonfiction. And that's really fun. I walked into a kindergarten class one day, and they were collecting pennies for penguins. I forget exactly what, I guess I don't know, put more ice around. I don't know what they were doing with the penguins, but it was something very important. And I went, "Oh, penguins. I wonder what the P book is on here." And sure enough, it was a book about penguins. And it had the answers to a lot of the questions the kids wanted to know about swimming and wings and flying and what could penguins do. And there it all was, and I sat down and read them a story instantaneously. Then they've added karaoke nursery rhymes, because most of our children know that Jack and Jill went up the hill. But if you're not a native English speaker, you may not know that. And that's part of the culture and part of what we want all kids to be familiar with nursery rhymes. Then it's got a whole lot of games. And they've added a whole new component to teach phonics, where the kids get to hear the way the letters are pronounced, and then they get to record themselves saying it, and then they can listen to themselves. So that's a brand new component. I used it on my granddaughters 2 weeks ago. They're 4 and 6, and they went nuts, even though they've been using this for years, because they loved the part where they could hear themselves. Everybody wants to see themselves, hear themselves. Look at me. If you're a preschool kid, look at me, mommy, and now hear me, mommy. All of this is in English and Spanish, and they keep adding pieces. Okay. And now, this is one of the books, and Jeanette's going to tell you how she uses it in her preschool class.
Yeah. So this is Under Construction. This is one of the stories that I've done with my students. And I'll go ahead and show you or tell you what each of the stars mean, and then I'll show you the video of just how I've used it in my classroom. So the Rita book, as she mentioned, it does English and Spanish. And the nice thing is it does go from preschool all the way to 3rd grade. So our kids that start with it in preschool can take it with them and help them learn how to read as they go through school. It highlights the word, and then also if they want to just touch a word, they can go back and touch the word, and it highlights that word as well. So it reads out loud to them, and then the other piece is they get to touch it. What I like to do the same manner as I would do a regular book is we do book walks. So we just look at the pictures. We talk about what's in the pictures, what do you see, what do you think is going to happen. We do that for a day or two before I allow my kids to touch the animation. Basically because of any child, once they get to touching, everything happens and they don't listen to any words that are happening. So I like to read it first, talk about it first, talk about the pictures, get all those critical thinking skills going before allowing them to do the animation. So that's the Read a Book Star. The Book Buddies goes into the comprehension question. So it's all visually based though, so it'll ask the question, or they can push the speaker and it will ask the question, and then they can visually pick the answer. The games is the same way. It's kind of the same idea as memory is one of the games. So, but it takes all of the vocabulary from the story. And like she mentioned, there's all those different stories. They all have each of the 4 stars, so they each are working with the vocabulary from that particular story. And then the Create a Book is a really fun feature just to work between home and school. That's the other thing that each of our kids has a super secret code, so it's a little 4-animal code or 4-letter code. It can be switched between letter or animal, and then they can use it at home with their parents. So we're talking about the piece of, parents not reading or not talking, and this will do it for them and can help them. So we do parent trainings as well to help learn, teach the parents about how to do it. But the Create a Book feature, they can create their own story using the backgrounds from whatever book that they want. So they can take the characters in Under Construction and they can make it big, they can make it small, they can type with their parents or tell their parents what they wanted to say, and then they can type it in. And this is just an example of how I've used it in my classroom.
B. What letter?
The letter B. Yes, it starts with the letter B. Hey, Kenya, it's your turn. Ah, look, the truck went forward.
Forward. And now it went backwards.
Then it went backward. Listen.
Out in the cold. The great big truck will dump its load.
Ah, what kind of truck is this called? Do you remember?
A dump truck.
A dump truck. Yes, all right. Tony's turn. Oop, again. Ah, it was dumping.
And it goes away.
And then it went away, you're right.
And it go away.
Ah.
Crash, crash, crash.
Hey, Cecilia, it's your turn again.
Crash, crash. Why you crash?
You did. Is it full now or is it empty?
Empty.
It started out full and then it was empty.
Sometimes fast and sometimes slow. Blow by hammering blow.
What is this in his hand? Hammer. Who used a hammer yesterday in the dramatic play area? Yes, we used the hammer. Hey, Yair, now it's your turn to touch.
You can do it.
Hammer? Pretend to hammer the floor. Hammer. And turn the page. So as you notice, there was a couple different things happening, working on social skills, working on waiting. Not everybody gets to touch at the same time. The other thing is you see children that have, more visual cues that need, an icon to help them wait. Or the little boy has a chewy in his mouth just to help keep his hands busy. Otherwise, his hands would be in his mouth. I teach children with disabilities as well as typical children. So my classroom is an inclusive setting. So I have half kids with disabilities and half kids without. So I've mentioned to Barbara before that the ironic thing about this video is that I have lots of behavioral issues right there of all those boys. But when you look at this video, you can't see that because they're so engaged and they're so interested and they're waiting. Granted, that took a long time. That didn't happen the first time we did, the program. So it definitely is a very good teaching tool for social skills. Even though this day and age everything is instant gratification, that they have to wait. They have to wait for their turn, and be able to understand that everything doesn't happen at the same time.
So
Yeah.
we had, as I said, started in 2011 and then kept expanding it. And last February, we offered this at no cost to every family with a preschool child in Napa County so that they could use it at home. And what we do is we have workshops. We had one last night up in Calistoga where the parents come in and we help them download it on it works on any device. It doesn't have to be any particular kind. It's device agnostic. And parents come in and we help them download it and then show them how to use it, show them how to make it interactive. Now what Jeanette had up, if you couldn't see it, but she had 2 iPads. One was doing it in Spanish and one was doing it in English. And when we were talking to the parents last night, they said that they find that they are learning more English through this because they can toggle back and forth. They can listen to the story in Spanish and understand what the story's about and then switch it to English so their children are hearing that, but they are hearing that. And one woman said, I learn a new word every day.
I learn more Spanish too.
Works for everybody. And the other thing about this program, and please understand, I am not a representative of this program. I don't make any money I'm not trying to sell you on this program. What I am trying to sell you on is digital early literacy. Because no matter what we think, or no matter what anybody's bias might be, as you correctly pointed out, kids are using it. Whether they're using their parents' phone or their parents' iPad, that's all they want. They see us using it. When my first granddaughter was born, I kept trying to buy her these cute little toy phones. She knew the difference. She was a year old. How could she know the difference? She wanted no part of that. I want the real one. She always wanted the real one. And I took a picture at some point walking through Macy's. Family was carrying this baby who couldn't have been, she wasn't a year old yet. And she's holding on to mom's phone. She's flipping through the pictures as they're carrying her around the store. So they are going to use it. We want to give them good stuff to use. And this is not the only program that our teachers use, but it is a foundational program because it's so comprehensive and has so much involved in it. The other thing about this, we issued a challenge when we launched the program in February, and we said, we challenge the children in Napa County to read 1 million words by the end of June. Well, we were over 3 million words by the end of June. And when we got to the end of August, or sometime in August, we cut it off and we started again for the new school year. We were at 5.3 million words at the end of August, and we are getting close to 1 million words now from August to now, and our teachers weren't using it in August and September. They really started in October. So families are using it at home, and people are now using it a lot. I'm seeing the words go up by tens of thousands of words a day. The teacher can get a report. If you are the teacher, you get a report every day. You can see which kids read which stories and how many words they read, how many books they read, how many books they created, and what percentage of the time they got that comprehension question correct on the first try. So you can see all of that, which also helps you as the teacher to differentiate what you're doing with the kids and how you group them and how you use this. Yes?
Do multiple children use the same device and it's just random, or do they log into the device?
Right, that's where the super secret codes, and actually when I've talked to parent trainees, the fun thing is that preschoolers get to go home and they have the super secret code. So they get to show their siblings, like, look, I have something that you don't have, sort of thing. But they also get to use it at school. So we only have, let me think, 6 to 7 devices, depending. With my program, we have 6 classrooms, so we share each other's iPads. If they're doing it at a certain time, we do it at a different time, so then that way we have more iPads in the classroom. But we don't have the one-to-one, and it actually, for the purposes of the social piece, it works better because then they're taking turns on the devices. They're putting their super secret code in, and then the next kid is putting their super secret code in.
Yeah, and the super secret code is for animals, so they just drag the animals and they know it real quick.
Even people who are from pretty low income seem to have a smartphone, or some kind of tablet. Tablets are pretty cheap. So are you finding that there is some device they can do it at home?
How much did I pay you for that question? It's a perfect question. Yes. Most parents do have some kind of smart device today, and that is the fastest growing market. So that's point one. The second thing is we're very fortunate in Napa County. We have a little public-private partnership called NapaLearns. And what they have done is purchase devices that they will sell to parents on a rent-to-buy plan. And I just happened to bring in the newest, cutest thing that came out on Tuesday that I want you to see. Behold, the new Kindle HD Fire for Kids. This device is $149, and it will download all of these apps that we are using. But it's made for kids, so you can bounce it, you can drop it.
That's not a cover, that's it.
This is it. This is not a cover. It comes with this, and this is rubber. So you can drop it on the floor. We were tossing it around the office the other day. I still can't do it. I just can't be tossing it around. But we were doing it, and it bounces. It's really cute. It's like a little ball.
At the parent trainings, they were so excited. They were like, when's it coming out? When's it coming out? And we were like, we'll get a flyer out next week. We promise, So
it's
all the
here.
parents were very excited just to be able to have that.
Oh, and by the way, it comes in colors if you want to buy them for your children or grandchildren this year. They have it in pink and blue and green, and it's $149. So we are doing a rent-to-buy program with these for the families who don't have $149 just to put down, and it's $30 down and then $15 a month. To me, this is perfect because I love the feel of it and the size of it for a little kid. You also can pour water on it. Or as they show in the commercials, orange juice or whatever you want to pour. But it's waterproof and drop proof.
The other neat thing I was going to mention is that even last year when we started this program, the state preschool classrooms, the teachers were telling me, well, yeah, they already have devices. I'm like, okay, so you have, lower income families that are coming to these state preschool programs, but like you mentioned, they're putting their money towards the technology. So it's a good avenue. It's like, okay, if this is where the families are choosing to put their money, let's give them something, educational to help it. And we use other apps and stuff in the classroom as well. And so I send home different, the icons, so that way they have the thing to look for in the app store, the picture. And then that way they can do some of the exact same programs that we're doing in class.
The other thing that is wonderful about this, for those of you who are in schools where everybody worries about the Williams Act and the Williams Settlement, and if kids don't have bandwidth at home and internet connectivity at home, we can't use it. This, once you download it, you can use it anywhere. You don't need to be connected. That's the big piece about this. And that's a piece that we all need to start thinking about as we use digital materials, is telling the publishers that things have got to be downloadable and then usable without connectivity. Let's go on, because I also want you to see some of the data that we got from this, because it isn't just that I think it's cute or that I like cute little Kindle Fire things because they're in color and I can bounce them. So the first summer that we used it, the only data that we really had was observational and what they record in terms of how much usage it got. The second year, we were using it in more classes, and so we did a pre and post on the Peabody Picture Vocabulary Test in expressive and receptive language. And the results that we found were statistically significant, with the highest growth coming among the English learners, which makes kind of sense because the English speakers already knew a lot of these words, so the growth was not as significant. The English learners absolutely soared. And you can see the pre-post in the English learner population, how amazing that is. So we got the English learner students, we got 79% of them to age 6, and the English speakers, 98% of them were at age 6 in kindergarten, which is pretty good. And expressive language, even more important, because it's one thing to just hear and understand the words, but to be able to speak, that was more critical. And again, both of them had tremendous growth by 250%. And Peabody Picture Vocabulary is nationally normed. We had it administered by retired teachers who came in to do this. So we were very excited about those results. And then Stanford University just recently did a study on the behest of, I think it's the Bring Me a Book Foundation. And they wanted to know, is it more effective to have children read books, to read digital books, or footsteps? And we found a lot of things. On pre-post, the question was how often you read to your child varies according to the family schedule. But in a typical week, how often are you able to read with your child? Most people manage to read weekly, some people daily, some depends on the family. That's the pre. But look in the post. When we introduced the program, it went up to 50% daily and almost 50% weekly. So just using this program gets more families reading with their kids. Is your child being read to more often than before you participated? Obviously, overwhelmingly, yes. Did the access to educational games help your child? Because there are these great games, but we want them to be educational. So the games teach them the Dolch words. It teaches them color recognition. You remember the old Lucy show in the candy factory with the candy moving down? Okay, so they have that in here, except it isn't candy, it's colored caps. And the game is the child has to tap all the caps that are whatever color they pick out, white or red or blue. And everything has many levels. So for my 4-year-old granddaughter, we put it on slow, and the caps go by on the conveyor belt, and she's got to hit every one that's a particular color. So it also helps with eye-hand coordination as well as the color recognition. But then for the 6-year-old, we do it on fast. And I swear, that's like I want to stuff the caps down my shirt because it moves very quickly, and I can't always get all of them. But it's great fun to do. The kids love it, and they are learning things. If your child used the games, what purpose did they serve? Pretty overwhelmingly, the parents felt the games were educational. Yeah, kept them occupied, but that's not what we're necessarily going for. And the parent education piece has been huge because to connect parents with school in this way is so powerful. So we have been doing these workshops now since last February. We did probably 17 workshops last year. We're on our way to 17 this year. We do it all over the county. And we say, bring your own device if you have it. If not, we give you a device to use so you can see what it is. Then we give them the code. And because we have the site license, when they put in their address, and it's a Napa County address, then they automatically get to log on, which you can't do if you're just coming at it from the outside. But grateful doesn't quite say enough about the reaction that we're getting from the parents. They are so excited because every parent wants to help their child. Not every parent is well equipped to help their child, but every parent wants their child to be successful in school. Every parent wants their child to be a good reader. Every parent wants their child to go on and get a good education and get a good job, but they're sometimes powerless to make that happen. And that's what we are trying to do, to give them this really good start and start closing the achievement gap before they get to kindergarten. Now, the other thing that was really exciting is that many of our kindergarten teachers who've been teaching kindergarten for many years when they came in and did this, and others who were not part of that original pilot, they have been reborn, like re-energized, re-excited about what they're doing. Because when you see the kids so excited, when you see their eyes sparkling, when you see them wanting to read the stories, and what did your child say when you read them a story at night when you finished? Read it again. They all say the same thing, read it again. And then what happens is they memorize the story, and so if you leave out one word, they'll tell you, you skipped a page. You skipped a word. No, that's not that word. And one of the ways in which we naturally teach our children to read is we start leaving out words. So I would run my finger under the words as I read the story, and then I'd stop. And they would just naturally say the word while I'm pointing at it. So ding, 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 making the connection between what it looks like written down and what the word is. That's what they're doing in this. They want to read the same books again and again because they're familiar, and each word is highlighted in red as it's being said out loud, so they're seeing and hearing the word at the same time and making that same connection. And as they're memorizing it, they are learning the words and learning how to read. Another very powerful piece.
One of the things that the parent trains, the same idea of reading it over and over again. The neat thing with having the digital piece is the animations. So they already know what's going to happen if I do this, what's going to happen if I do that. But so we're telling the parents, okay, help build those critical thinking skills and prediction skills. Well, what do you think is going to happen if I do this? And sometimes even the kids will find something that they did at home, that they touched at home, and so we're doing it in school, and they're like, oh no, this does this, and we're like, oh, how'd you find that out? Oh, I read it with my mom at home, or whomever at home. So it's easy, that connection between home and school, and just to help develop more critical thinking skills and helping the parents understand to ask questions, all those WH questions, to get them thinking, to get their imagination going. And I didn't focus as much on the create a book, but they can create a book at home under their super secret code and then share it with their classmates at school. And that's one of the neat ties that we've done, because every time I change books, I always have a big picture, out on my parent board of what book we're doing. So then that way the parents can do that same book at home, and then they can work on the creative book and then bring it back to school. So it's more or less a neat way to do a show and tell through digital literacy.
And our kindergarten teachers then started a blog because they were so excited. So you can access that. It's called ikinder.org. ikinder.org. And you can find it on I don't know if it'll come up all by itself, but on the NapaLearns website, I know it will come up. And that's Napa capital Learns, no space, NapaLearns. And they share what they're doing. Jeanette and I both have our iPads, and then we have it on this new little toy, our Kindle Fire. So if you would like to come and play with it and see what it looks like live, we are happy to stay. So are there any questions? I think is that the end of what we have?
We're just going to
they still say that early childhood preschool programs should limit screen time. So we're doing it for between 10 and 20 minutes a day, depending on the group and depending on whether it's an all-day program or a half-day program. So in a half-day program, they get to rotate through the center one time for 15 minutes. If it's a full-day program, they can sometimes rotate twice through the center, and it is available for free choice. But no kid is sitting on the iPad all day long, we promise.
Well, and that's the other piece. I go out to the other preschool teachers and just help them implementing the program in their classroom. And they were worried and concerned about the children sitting on the device for 10 to 15 minutes. And I was like, no, a collective time. So it's just, helping other teachers realize too, no, we're not asking them to be on it, for a consecutive time. It may be a couple minutes here, and they go play with the other parts in the classroom.
As you know, technology and interactive media are here to stay. It isn't going away. And I just put this on because even the National Association for the Education of Young Children with Fred Rogers says it's okay to use devices. And in the materials we gave you is some research, learning and exploring using tablets, and the language gap, the Stanford study about the 30 million word gap. All right, thank you. And if you want to play, come up here. We're happy to let you.